Anybody here can get it. Treat the game like a scrimmage now. Master B with the flow. I swear nigga got no limits now. I've been ballin' for a minute. Whole team full of winners. Anybody here can get it. You tuned into the realest now. Anybody here can get it. Treat the game like a scrimmage now. Master B with the flow. I swear nigga got
That's what I do. That's what I get the soda drink for. It's just the fizzy water. I just have my old carnitine in it. It's like having a soft drink on your hip that doesn't actually have any caloric value, but it tastes a little bit sweet. You know, it's really cool.
That's mean.
So you're still going for the cap, mate, eh? Still...
Oh, I can't. I go on and off. My knees really dictate. Hey, if I eat a lot, they feel good, but I train a bit harder, and then they fuck out faster. And then I don't eat much, and I feel better overall, but my knees hate it. So
your knees are ruling your life at the moment, eh?
Yeah, no, my businesses are.
No, your business. Yeah. Crazy man, and no training.
I actually had sore knees like all last year internationals, eh? Like all comp.
Did you?
Yeah, all training cycle, and I did what Geordie did. I just tried to eat more to get rid of it.
Yeah,
it worked towards the end. I mean, now they're good. Now it's just my shoulders, and then something else will go, and then it's fucked.
I do a stretch mobility session on my legs 2 or 3 times a week at the moment. It takes about 15 minutes to get through. I quite enjoy it. It's really good. You know, just about can get to the point now where I can sit on my heels when I'm sitting on my knees. I can just about touch my heel onto my backside. So it's getting closer.
Oh yeah.
Jesus, you can sit on your knees.
Just about, yeah. I can sit on my knees, like I can kneel on them, but it's not very. The right one's still got a screw poking out the front of it. So.
Oh Jesus, okay. I was gonna say I can't even imagine sitting on my knees. I can even just squatting down to the time of laces sometimes. Just a bit of an effort. I almost have to get a handle. Just winch my way down to the ground.
I think that's the thing with those things, isn't it? Frequency. Just do it.
Yeah.
I thought sore knees were more of an imbalance than fucking shit you're eating, isn't it?
Well, it can be.
Just a recovery though, way. If you have more calories, you recover faster, definitely.
Yeah. Get rid of the inflammation.
Yeah.
What are you recovering from though? I mean, you mean from the
training.
Workout? Oh,
stress.
You're not recovering from training that way, George. You're just recovering from being awake all day.
Yeah, old age. Yeah, no, I've got permanent inflammation where they had the operation. So
is it permanent now?
Yeah. It's either always like I get it from walking too. I do 2 or 3 times a week. I do like about an hour and a half to 2 hour walk session. I go up around the neighborhood and check 2 different beaches out type thing. But and they can be quite good after that, but they certainly tighten up towards the end of the week.
Yeah.
They're about 20% shorter. So anything that I used to be able to do is is tough. Like they definitely, I can, like I say, me getting to a point where my glutes can touch my ankles is pretty good. And but where the operation is, I still can't feel most of my right leg, and my left leg is pretty good some days and not others. So
wow,
that's nearly 3 years on.
Yeah, 3 years at least, eh?
It's an interesting injury and treatment, because if you look at Marcos's brother, Spiros, he's only just come out of being able to walk and get around. You know what I mean? Like he had to have a couple of operations to fix it, but his knees won't be the same. They just don't feel the same anymore. Like actually, when you touch them, they feel weird. Like my daughter the other night she was snuggled in next to me, and I kept on having to flick her foot off my knee because it was just in a spot that just feels nauseating.
Oh, okay. You've still got metal in the knee, haven't you? Screws?
Yeah, there's screws in the front of one of the kneecaps, but they said I can probably get an operation, get them taken out again. So
yeah, I don't know if you guys remember Natalie, my client Natalie.
Yeah,
she just had, I mean, like
she had the screws taken out, didn't she?
Yeah, like just
all the metal taken out
last weekend. Yeah, she got them taken out.
Wow.
And she said it feels like 10 times better already, and it's not even healed. Like, just because there's not like the stuff in there that's taking up space that shouldn't be, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's how it kind of feels, like you're jamming something into it every time you kneel on it. So
yeah. Well, she had like similar trauma, like real traumatic, like car crash. Yeah. Both her ankles went through the wall of the fucking car, so she had to get them both reconstructed.
Damn.
So yeah, that was pretty. So, but now that's 5 years ago. But yeah.
Do you think Geordie doesn't very much depend on who the surgeon is as well?
Oh yeah, I had a different one on each leg, so you can tell there's a difference between both of them. like the right leg though was a lot crooked when I came out from underneath the rack. So like it was the one I think that I pivoted on and to be able to roll the bar off. So the sprained ankle I had on my right leg was way worse than the one I had on my left leg. The whole leg was kind of messed up, so.
Fuck, we had in the weekend we beat Big Aaron McKay, and he was re-racking, I think.
I saw he said he got injured. What the fuck happened?
Oh no, that was from benching.
Oh.
But he had a rough comp. The squat didn't hurt himself on the squat, but we had a hairy moment for a while. These new promoters, they need to, you guys know it fucking clearly, but when you're doing your rack heights with an empty bar,
it's different.
Take into account what happens when you put 200, 300 kilos on your back.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're trying to, the spot load's trying to re-rack Aaron's bar when he gets to the top. And it's about that far from the hook.
Holy moly.
Yeah, they couldn't lift it up, And so Aaron's standing there for he must have been 20 seconds, and 20 seconds under 350.
Yeah.
Long time.
He was doing okay, but that could have gone either way. It was only like that far to go to get it back onto the hook, but the guys are just really struggling,
Yeah, it should. I always line it up to just above my nips so that it's like there's a good section there. You've just got to dip under it and just a small pulse up type thing. So, but I squat wide anyway. So by the time I get from my bar down into position, it's in the right spot. You know what I mean? So
the problem with new spot loaders, you can teach them and tell them, but until they experience
it's experience. Yeah, it's experience. My client James that was doing it, he said that on his first squat, the hooks were in, but they were in so far that he couldn't fit.
Oh, because he's a fucking.
He's a big dude, man. Like,
is that his first comp? I'm calling it bullshit.
He's done it. He's done a novice comp. He did a IPL. He did one of Dan's comps.
Because he was a beast.
Yeah, man. He's come a long way. He listens. He just does the plan. That's it.
Yeah.
He
was really nice guy.
Yeah. He did a comp, like maybe a year ago with Dan.
Jesus, gym lifter, eh?
And then
the whole time.
Yeah, and then he just messaged me and I said, look, tidy this shit up and you'll be fucking away.
Yeah, he was impressive.
Strong, man. And he was pissed because the one lift he didn't listen to me on, he missed.
Yeah, he told me that, He said, Jackson said to do this, and I did that, and I fucked up.
That's all right.
We should, do you want to, let's get stuck into the podcast. I've been recording the whole time, by the way, so I'm going to probably use
fuck. I'll use some of that, man.
I'll probably use some.
Cut and play some of it, yeah.
Hey, everyone, welcome to Off the Platform. Got a couple of co-hosts on today. Obviously, you've got my main man, Jackson Hinch, and one of the OGs, Geordie Shields. Hey, guys, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, doing, Greg?
Hey.
Yeah, just someone say something. Jesus.
Sorry, you can't introduce two people at once.
No, exactly. They're like, I'll let Geordie go first because he's the
guest. But we're both gentlemen. We're waiting for each other to talk, you see. So.
Yeah.
Good on you. Good on you. Now, the topic today is we're keeping it local, but we wanted to talk about programming. Even that word itself can cause confusion, as it's very I think it's very powerlifting centric. I don't know, Jackson, is it a powerlifting word or is it just generally?
Nah,
it's not a programming.
Not really. I mean, people seem to think it is, but every sport you've got some sort of training, and if it's working towards something or you've got a goal at the end, that's programming.
Pretty much.
Really.
So, yeah.
You can programming's more than just, I suppose, weights on a bar and the amount of sets and reps you do. Like Geordie, we were discussing just before, Geordie's got a program for his knee rehab. It's a program. You do it with X amount of times. Gymnasts will have a program. Fighters will have a program.
Yeah.
It can be anything.
So as Jackson has alluded to, we're going to be talking about how to pick and choose, and some of the basics behind powerlifting programs, what to look out for, what to avoid, what exactly is a program, common programs out there, and how to find the best fit. So Jackson, do you want to kickstart things and just take us through some basics of? Here we go, basics.
I was going to say this is going to be like the first episode again. You got someone start a timer. Fuck.
Some of the basics. So what are some really simple principles around powerlifting or strength training that you can cover off and using the most simplest descriptions you can?
All right. So I mean, I guess
is set.
Yeah, I guess like the key for programming, the biggest key for programming is what I just said before, is you've got an end goal. You know what you're trying to achieve. If you don't know what you're trying to achieve, then how do you program? You know, do you want to get bigger? Do you want to get fitter? Are you trying to get stronger? Are you trying to peak for a meet? Are you trying to lose some fat? Are you trying to get more mobile? You know, you're going to program differently for all of those things. So you need to decide that's why powerlifting is quite good, because you get set dates. You know, the meet's not going to, if you have a bad training day, the meet's not going to move.
So does that mean that every powerlifting program is intended to prepare you for a meet?
100%. 100%. No, you know,
Does that mean everyone doing powerlifting needs to compete?
Not necessarily. Well, no, well, do you play, do you call yourself a footballer if you don't play football?
Well, people call themselves bodybuilders, but they don't get on stage.
Well, I don't believe they're a bodybuilder though. That's what I mean. Yeah. No. So if you don't compete,
people raging at the camera right now.
Yeah. No. Here's the soundbite, bro. If you don't compete, you're not a powerlifter.
There's our soundbite.
100%. If you don't compete,
our 60 seconds of soundbite.
Honestly, you're in the gym. You can still train and have a program, but you're not a powerlifter if you don't compete.
So here we have it, folks.
The first controversial call of the podcast.
I don't understand how people, you know, I throw a rugby ball around at the park with the boys, but I don't call myself a rugby player. I'm too much of a fucking pussy. You know, it's you can't. Oh, you lift weights and you max out in the gym. Cool, you're not a powerlifter.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess I mean that if anyone's aware of a powerlifting program, it is intended to have an end date, and whether or not you're a powerlifter aside, that end date is either a meet or a mock meet. Yeah, it can be a mock meet.
Well, I would say any program has an end date. So like if I take nationals last year, for example, I didn't do any comps leading up to it for that 12 months beforehand, but I was training for it the whole time.
Okay.
But I had 12 months worth of phases planned out, you know, so I had to rehab my Achilles. Obviously that was fucking phase number 1. Yeah. But,
well, let's take a step back, because perhaps a lot of people listening to the podcast right now will be familiar with bodybuilding training, where it's just the same cycle of exercises week after week after week. You might do some variation and you might input some change here and there, but give or take, there's no, unless you're aiming for a competition, there's no particular end in mind. So you're just training over and over and over. Whereas in powerlifting, you're training towards a goal either at some stage. So you're talking about phases, eh? So
why do bodybuilders not have that?
They do have that. I always train specifically for like it's hard to say. Like, yeah, the goal is the ultimate destination, right? But there could be a couple of competitions between where you're starting from right now and where you're going to. Now that could be
okay. So maybe bodybuilding training is not the right example. I'm thinking about people who just go to the gym and work out. Yeah. Let's talk about your average gym goer just goes to the gym and work out. Obviously, within that sort of subculture, within that culture, the culture or subculture, there's a number of people that are competing for competitive events, but it's not, depends on the gym, but it's not the norm. Yeah, do we agree on that? It's not.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Finally, we agree on something.
Fuck's sake.
Yeah. How good.
Let's talk about that small group of people, obviously gym dependent, that are aiming towards goals. They will have a plan that supports that achievement of that goal. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, cool.
And then behind that goal is a timeline. So that'll determine, you know, how many phases you've got between, or cycles between, that end result and what you have to achieve. So most coaches would set markers, and the most common marker is generally a 4 or an 8 week period. So you know, I've seen people try and rush preparation through for multiple peaks at their maxes within a 12-month period. And to be honest, when I first started out, I just wanted to rip shit and blow everything up. So that's the kind of type of training that I kind of prescribed to initially. And then after my first year, I realized I was just going to get too tired.
Okay, so what you're alluding to, Geordie, is the tendency for people who are involved in strength training, maybe in the early days anyway, with they're uneducated, is to try and lift as heavy as possible all the time. Yeah,
every single time. Yeah, and that's not powerlifting.
Yeah. So what's optimal when it comes to powerlifting? So thinking about, I've got a competition in mind in 6 months' time. What's the approach I take?
Again, just a bit ultimately depends on the individual. Like, it's interesting. Like, I'm listening to what you guys are saying, and I agree with some of it, but every individual's different. Every individual has a different need. So the markers that you set generically, like if as a coach, I don't someone approaches me and I don't sit down and go, well, I've got this cookie cutter program I'm going to pop you on, and it's just going to work. Now, the fundamentals of like a 5-3-1, that's predominantly what I like to start people on, and it just gives me an opportunity to see, first, if they are willing to stick to the plan, or if they're just going to piss around. Because if you can't stick to 4 weeks of, just a nice basic 5-3-1 program, well, then if I get too technical the program later on, they're not going to be able to self-manage, which wouldn't be a problem. But I've got limited amount of time to spend one-on-one with clients, so I want to maximize that. And and you always tend to be more intensive with a brand new person than you are with someone who's got a bit of experience behind them, might have done a novice, or they might even be competing for a year. And then they've got their own ideas that they can bring to the table too. But everyone's different. So, I typically work in 4-week cycles. I find that really easy to do, and then it gives me that opportunity to see how they train around it. And 5-3-1 for me has been a good program.
Okay, so let's just briefly let's touch on that now, but take a step back and what are the types of programs? Jackson, you want to take this one? So, what do you look for in a program? Are they all one and the same? Are they all variations of the same thing? I mean, where do you start with identifying a program? Because you're going to type in a search in Google. This is brand new powerlifters I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Powerlifting programs. You're going to come up with 700 variations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which one do you choose?
There's so many out there. There's, to be fair, most people, like you said before, most people in the gym are just going in, doing the same shit day after day after day. You know what I mean? They're lifting the same weights as they did last year.
Yep.
So that's why they look the same. They're lifting the same shit. If they honestly, pretty much 90% of programs out there, if they followed one of those programs, they would make progress.
Mm.
You don't need the best program. You don't need the perfect program. You need, like Geordie said, follow something to a T, and then you can say, hey, this worked or it didn't work. And most of those people, the 90% of gym goers that do whatever, that they will make gains just from following basically any program. They can Google, they can find, there's 5-3-1, there's cube, if they were really game, they could go conjugate. There's juggernaut, there's Smolov, there's Shaco, there's 5x5s. That strong lifts, that's been around for like ever. That's like the basic go-to for anyone. And so just having some sort of structure for most people is going to get them gains. You know what I mean? Because they just need to build in some sort of progression where they're not going to beat themselves into the ground every day. They're going to hold themselves back a wee bit, but still put enough that their body has to adapt.
So what are some of the similarities between each of these programs? Before we go into the differences, what are the similarities?
Progression. They all have a built-in progression system somehow.
Progression in terms of what?
So you're not pushing yourself at max right from day one. That you might start at maybe 65%, and gradually over the course of each sort of phase, you're going to add a certain amount of poundage on each time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 60%, Geordie, you mentioned that. What 60% of what? I'm sorry to be asking these questions, but I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I'm
coming at you from as a brand new. I don't have a fucking clue.
Yeah.
So basically, as Greg.
So you're coming in at 60% of your 1 rep max. Now, 1 rep max, if you're calculating it, it's going to be a little bit difficult. So there's a few apps and so on that you can use online to kind of assess where you're potentially at, but it still takes a bit more time. So 65% of your max. So we've got progression, 1 rep max, 60%.
I mean, the
60% of my 1 rep grind.
What's that?
Or would you I don't know if this is even relevant, but that 1 rep, that 1 gym rep, would you literally take 60% of that, or would you maybe taper off a bit? Because obviously a lot of us for our 60%, where our 1 rep max anyway would be an absolute nightmare of a rep. Does it pay, Jackson? I know you've mentioned this before. Does it pay to taper off a bit and come up with a more of a conservative number?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing with that is that most people's 1 rep max will be grindy and shit because their technique sucks.
Mm.
You know, if you have, so in a perfect world, if you had perfect technique, you would go. Most cases, if your technique was 100% perfect, which no one's is, but anyway, you would go from hitting it and it looking like you could do 5 to missing within 5 kilos.
Yeah.
You see that those top guys, that's what they do, because their technique is so close to perfect that they'll hit whatever, and you add 5 kilos, they miss, and you're like, what the? I thought he had another 50 kilos in him. You know, so most people's 1 rep max will be a grind because their technique sucks.
Yeah.
So 60% of that actually wouldn't be that bad. The thing with that is that you almost need to find the movements that. So say you take a squat, you've got this like, I don't know, just say a middle-aged woman who's only ever been on the cross trainer, yeah. So and she wants to get into strength training. We've had this example a few times at with Wolfpack. But so she comes in, she's only ever been on the cross trainer or done like the little dumbbells because she's been at some like ladies only gym or whatever. So her squat is shit. So for her, I'm not going to use a squat as her main movement because her force output on the squat is going to be horrendous, like you say. So 60%, so she'll squat like 50 kilos or whatever, but she's got these legs on her that'll eventually squat 200. So, but I'm not going to then sit there and train her with a 20 kilo squat. You know, I'll get her movement with the squat going, but I'm going to use a hack squat or a leg press where she can actually load it up and not have to worry about the technical side of things to actually then get her stronger. Okay. If that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we've talked about program, the similarities between powerlifting programs and Geordie.
Sorry, I sort of went off on that one because
that's cool. We can come back to it as well.
They all work.
There is a role of a coach in all this as well. But the very early days, we're looking at programs and we're looking at similarities. Some of the biggest similarity you're going to see straight off is progression.
It's progression of some sort, whether it's weight, sets, reps, less rest time, better technique. You know, if you lift 60 kilos this week for 5 reps and you do 60 kilos next week for 5 reps, but it's much easier. You come off the set much less tired because your technique's better and you're much more efficient. That's progress.
Yeah. So all of these programs are going to ask you to input your 1 rep max and basically calculate the weights, reps, and sets across a number of weeks, aren't they?
Most of them. Most of them are based on some sort of percentage system.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can't. Because any sort of program that you find that's generic online is just going to be percentages because there's no one there to decide the weights for you.
No, exactly.
So they have to give you some sort of just like, this will probably work. Try this. Yeah.
Where did these and I don't know if this is going to be easy to explain. Where do these percentages come from? Really high level. What are the basic principles around strength training, powerlifting training in terms of that percentage lifting of your 1 rep max?
So so percentages is like you almost move through a thing. So beginners percentages works really well because, you know, if you can do 100 kilos, 60 kilos is going to be challenging enough, then 70, then 80. But like for me, if I'm, squatting 350, well, I'm not then going to start at 60% of that. I'm going to start lighter again because it's the absolute load is so much more.
Yeah.
So the percentages work really well for a beginner. And as you get more advanced, you need to go more into sort of self-regulation. I hate it, but people call it RPE, but it's fuck that. Who cares?
So what we're talking about here is the level of effort, that you put in. And
rating of perceived exertion.
Yeah. So what? Because that's obviously how hard do I need to train? In bodybuilding training, it's balls to the wall. You do it till you can't push the weight up anymore, and then you try and do some more powerlifting training. Very different name.
Well, see, so this is the thing. I don't think all bodybuilders should train like that.
No, but most of them don't. Well, most of the good ones don't.
No.
You fail on the last set of that exercise. That's the failure set. You still do it. You still do it you still show that progression. And you start off on a dumbbell bench, for example. Start off with progression. If your set ranges in your first few sets, if you're doing 4 sets, you're going to do it so that second set you're supposed to do 8 reps. And if you can do 10, you still bank the 8 reps. So it doesn't matter, you hold it back. And then you throw an extra poundage on. So until you might get to the final set, and your final working set could be, 2 to 6 reps. I used to like to train for right through to heavy sets as a bodybuilder. So I'd use 2 to 6 reps in a bodybuilding program, especially in the off season. And I would do 2 to 6 reps. And if on the third set, which is my first my real working sets, it's kind of positioning set for me. If I knew I could get 8 reps out at the weight I had on, I would still stop at 6 because I want to fail on the last one with the maximum amount of weight on it. So I might pick 4 or 5 exercises, but I'm only going to fail between 4 and 5 times in that workout as a result of that. You know what I mean? So. So gone are the days where I think, as you say early on, you probably feel like you need to go balls to the wall on every single set in a bodybuilding program. But as you get older and wiser, you realise that you're just putting undue pressure on all your tendons and everything, and you basically break yourself when you don't need to.
Do you actually think you have to go to failure? On every exercise? Is that what you do currently, or you used to do?
Only for one set on each exercise. So if I pick 5
you still currently do that?
But it depends on the rep range I'm failing at. So I might decide I'm going to fail at a heavy set of 2 to 6, or I'm going to fail at a moderate set at about 8 to 12, or I actually like to train high rep range now, and so I'll train 15 to 20 be my failure set.
All right. I don't think you have to go to failure ever.
You don't?
No.
For a bodybuilder?
Nah, I don't think so. Even for powerlifting, you don't have to.
No, I can imagine for powerlifting, but you don't believe in that for bodybuilding, no?
No, you don't have to. You can still progress. It's the same thing. You don't have to you don't have to fail. Personally, I don't think that hasn't been my experience. I've done it, so maybe that's helped me get to where I am, but you don't have to, because like you say, it's just undue wear and tear. But if you can keep yourself in why would it work differently for powerlifting than bodybuilding?
But a failure set could be a drop set, and therefore you're not putting strain on the body. All you're doing is you're maximizing the volume of blood you're pushing into the muscle.
So you're going past what you would have failed at with the heavier weight. Yeah, that's fair. I think those intensity techniques definitely have more carryover for bodybuilding.
I don't see a real purpose for them in powerlifting in that sort of sense. Yeah.
But
so back to powerlifting, we're talking about the level of intensity you need to exert and how much is enough. So what are the measures for that, Jackson or Geordie? What are the measures for effort?
Well, it's most programs these days are either percentages or RPE.
Yeah, and then after you go through your first cycle, you kind of know where you started, if you know what I mean. And then it's either you add 2.5 pounds because you did what the program said it should in the previous round, or you take 2.5 pounds off because actually you couldn't quite make the last phase of that program. So, so like a 4-week rotational program, you've got that progression from sort of easy into moderate into heavier. And the heavier end of it is where you generally notice whether you've got the calibration right for your weight, and that's often it's a good time just to look at it and go, actually, I didn't perform as well as I wanted to. My technique was a bit loose. I had to pick it back 5 kilos for next week and just go through the same rotation, and then I know that you're kind of tracking in the right direction.
Okay, so we've settled on the commonalities between the programs: progression, sets, reps. And intensity, the percentages, sorry. We've talked about the difference between some of the measures like RPE. and percentages, but we have RPE, Jackson, rate of perceived exertion. Yeah. Is that an objective measure?
Yeah. And most people suck at doing that.
Yeah. Because I mean, a 10, I assume, is the highest, and that is what? Very hard?
Yeah. Well, but they'll judge it off what, like,
is it my hard or your hard?
Well, exactly. Like, so, I mean, my 10 on a squat, I'm quite a fast squatter for the most part. You know, I'll go from hitting it to missing in about 5 kilos. I don't grind. I can't really grind that well. But if you on a same on a deadlift, I can't grind it. I'm not much of a grinder. Whereas you'll get someone who is, but then if someone looks at them and they're like, oh, that's a 10 RPE, yours is only like an 8. But for me, it's a 10.
Yeah.
And so most people suck at realizing what their 10 is and what their 8 is. But the other thing is most people don't even know what a 10 is because they've never actually gone to failure.
Yeah. Especially on a squat, because is that fair? Yeah.
Yeah. Or a rep set as well. You know, like it's not specifically for singles. You can say a set of 5 was a 8 RPE or whatever. So that's personally, I don't get clients to really do that because most of them suck at being like, because they'll say it's hard because it's new.
Yeah,
that's why they come to you in the first place, though. If we're talking in terms of, you know, Greg's question is really about what if I'm an individual and I'm using that for purpose. You've just kind of got to feel it out, and you've got to go by the structure of the program. And if in that specific week your squat is X number of reps at this percentage or weight, and you've kind of calibrated it to that, and it says that you must do 5 reps, 5 reps, 5 reps, 3 reps, 5 reps, and then do a widowmaker at the end. And it's just supposed to be 3 reps at this specific weight, and you only get 2. Well, you've calibrated your program on, so pull it back a little bit, or do the same routine, like in a 5-3-1. You've got 5, you know, the week of 5, 3, and 1. So you've got that progression through over 3 weeks. If I was at 1 in my own programming, and I failed to hit that marker, I might do that exact same round the following week, just if I felt like I was really close. But if I was like well and truly out and I was gassed and I was thinking, no, I'm just not going to get that rotation on the next way around, I'd start the program again from week 5, like from the first week, which is a 5 rep focus. So nice and easy way to kind of pull it back into it. So,
so the next area of programming we should talk about is the role or the choice of exercise selection, otherwise known in powerlifting and breeding sports, you know, specificity.
Actually, Greg.
No, Jackson.
Sorry, I had something to add for the percentages and stuff.
No, we're fucking
just for. Oh,
carry on.
So, like, for how we were saying about the how you would pick the percentages. You know what I mean? Obviously, so it depends, like we were saying before, about that phase of training that you're in. So, like, obviously, if you're coming up to a comp and you've got a comp in 2 weeks, you're not then going to.
We should cover this. Yeah, absolutely.
You're not then going to be sitting there lifting 70%. You know what I mean? You might be if it's a deload or whatever. But hey, so you need to. This is the thing about, like, you don't simply need a big end goal, but you need to have the goal for each training phase. If you know what I mean. So you need to then be able to be like, so say like Geordie was saying, if you start at 60%, you're sort of, and then you build up from there to your comp to 100% eventually, but it's just over how long do you do that?
Yeah. You know, so what would be a good prep for a beginner, do you think then, Jackson? Because, you know, an absolute beginner, like someone's completely novice, as you say, only knows the cross trainer, walks into a gym. I don't even get them to squat or deadlift for the first 4 weeks. I just get them to, you know, get used to the training cycle where you just pick a machine because they're not going to hurt themselves on it.
100%.
And then I introduce the technique in the following 4 weeks. So if someone came to me as a complete novice, I would expect it would be 8 weeks before they're actually doing the program the way I want them to.
Yeah.
And then they'll get another maybe 4 to 6 weeks before I feel comfortable that they're actually going to start to be able to push it and maintain the technique. So, you know, and that's just a safety thing, but not everyone's going to be in that position. Some bodybuilders, for example, could pick it up a lot quicker. You know, with bodybuilders, you've got to train them out of the technique, though. So, you know, bodybuilding deadlift is so different to a powerlifting deadlift. I was doing some work with a bodybuilder recently, and that person was very rushed to get the reps up and wasn't resetting, and the reps were a bit dirty, and I didn't feel like the safety involvement was there. But what a lot of people transitioning from bodybuilding in is they think they can just roughhouse it up and it'll work when they hit the comp. But bodybuilding is about executing the perfect rep. You want your body in the perfect position. So, for a beginner, I like to be pretty set, and I want you to see the setup between each rep. If your program says 5 reps, then you must set up between each rep and execute the rep correctly, and that just helps to train out all those bad habits. People that suicide bench in bodybuilding because they can rep a bit quicker and more comfortably on their wrists. You don't want them doing that in a competition, because obviously it's going to be a no lift. They're going to get 3 red lights because the grip's not right. And that changing a grip is quite a big thing in a bench press. So it takes a little while for you to get used to it.
In terms of that, this is sort of going a wee bit off what we were talking about, but why, just go back to what you said before, why is a bodybuilding deadlift different to a powerlifting deadlift? Like, is the aim not to be as strong and as safe as you can?
Oh, it is definitely, but I guess that I've seen people talk about whether you set up for each rep individually or whether you do a touch and go. And with a touch and go, your tendency, especially if you're inexperienced, is to pull off with your shoulder in front of the bar, which drags you forward. So there's a little bit more back in it. You don't get that time to, sometimes as you get tired, the hips generally come up first. So you automatically, your body pushes you forward in the rep. And so you use a lot more energy than you probably needed to. And and as I train specifically, the further I got into powerlifting, I understood that the idea is to preserve as much as you can your energy levels. So I would inject the bar when I hit the bar on the platform, because I don't want to waste the energy and focus on the bar. I actually just wanted to get it up. So I would try and compose myself a little bit, so I didn't do that. But if you rush through those reps, and because that's the way you train as a bodybuilder, then
but that's not necessarily just because that's just bad technique. If you
exactly.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get at the fact that there are actually it is better for bodybuilding if you just do it better.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that. Yeah.
There is powerlifters that deadlift flat as well.
Well, they're good ones that do that.
But it's I don't. It's one of those things that I've had people say it to me that bodybuilding training and powerlifting training. I know we're talking about powerlifting programming here, but people that they're vastly different. And to be honest, maybe
it's the bad habits that are different.
Yeah, it's the habits that are different. It's not, the training's not vastly different.
Sometimes the execution of the movement is different, Jackson. Like powerlifting, there's obviously the adherence to a full movement, complete execution of the movement perfectly. Whereas in bodybuilding, you're simply hitting the muscle, and there can be variation in the movement, in the sense that you might only move some of that, you might only go some of the range.
Yeah. I think set up on a bench as well, the arch of your back and so on is not really a factor. There's not a lot of bodybuilding coaches out there that say, look, I want to see a nice arch back, keep yourself as tight as you can, spring load your legs into it so they're nice and flat on the ground, you can't move them at all. Now, there's all these parameters that you have to remember going onto a platform that should be fundamental in how you set up for your reps too, because you want that to be automated as soon as you hit the platform. And with a novice, it's, once they get that down and they've got 100%, they just then need to remember about the calls, because they'll miss a call. You see an experienced do it because they're so wrapped up in what they're doing, or maybe they miss something on the floor and they miss a call and they lose the lift altogether. So I kind of agree both sides. I think it's habits that I think you pick up in bodybuilding that are, where you can do just a couple of cheat reps here and there, and you can load up a little bit more with a bit of dirty technique and swing your back a bit here and there. But in powerlifting, you don't want to train that into your program. You want to do it. You want to execute it perfectly.
But 100%, I agree that if more bodybuilders train like powerlifters, they probably would get. Probably the achievement would be higher. Yeah.
But you're safer and you're stronger. You're going to shift more weight, so you're going to put more muscle on. You're not why would you bench with a flat back when you can bench with your shoulders back?
No, 100%. Yeah, but obviously, you're looking at bodybuilders that don't always do the three main compound movements with the 3 lifts of powerlifting. But they're working on everything else. They're working all sorts of variations and angles and machines and so forth to hit that muscle group in a different way.
If you're doing free weights,
Yeah, if you do notice the bodybuilders that are doing the powerlifting moves well, they do it really well, and they're strong as fuck, and they're the ones that, if I, for example, would go up and say, hey, just give this silly sport away, come do powerlifting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you
give
are
it a
strong as
bash.
fuck, Yeah.
Give it a bash, yeah.
Give it a bash, yeah. Okay, so we talked about percentages, we talked about RPE. Is there anything, before we move on to exercise selection, is there anything else around intensity or methods to measure effort that you need to put in that's worth discussing? I know previously, Jackson, we've had Laura on talking about her velocity-based training.
That's another
level. That's very, very advanced, isn't it? Yeah. So might leave that one, But
well, I mean, I just don't know how to. I've just never learned how to implement it. But it's the same as RPE or percentages. If it's just another way of measuring the effort you're putting in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of I mean, I think the future, I could be wrong, but the future could be very data driven in terms of how we look at powerlifting training. Would you agree with that?
I'd hope so.
Yeah,
100%. Because otherwise, without data,
technology.
Well, how do you know it worked? This is the thing. It's all based on progression. You need to progress. How do you know it worked? You need to have some sort of feedback. People get pretty crazy into it these days. There's a lot of data coming out. I mean, people have got sleep apps and those O-rings that measure your body temperature, your HRV, they measure everything, and you've got all this data, but people get sort of paralyzed by it a wee bit. I think if people just focus more on the basic shit.
Never heard of this. I never heard of this O-ring. Where does that go, Jackson?
On your finger.
Oh, the finger. Okay.
Yeah. Nothing untoward. I mean, I don't know. I haven't got one. It might work better.
Show us your hands. No, you got one on your left hand. There's an O-ring there, is it?
That's the.
That's a sign of. Yeah.
Yeah, see, we've all got that, mate. We're in trouble. We're not going to comment on that. We'll get in trouble.
All right. So we talked about percentages and RPE. So let's talk about exercise selection. Are the best powerlifting programs where you're just doing the powerlifting movements? No. Why?
Again, this is another soundbite. Fuck that. That's boring as batshit.
Is that the only reason?
Can you, that's one of the main reasons. Can you imagine going to the gym every day? Oh, what am I doing today? Let me check my fucking program. Oh, squat, bench, and deadlift again. How fucking good. How excited would you get 5 days a week squatting, benching, and deadlifting? I'd hate my life.
Is it a misconception that all Russian powerlifting programs are boring?
No. Well, yeah, okay.
I don't know. I think if you know how to use them and you understand them and you actually read about them, they're actually quite interesting because there's a lot of data around them. They've been around for ages, but to someone from the outside who's probably experienced a lot of variation in their training, yeah, definitely they're going to look boring.
But
is it a misnomer that
they have accessories?
That's where I'm going.
Jacked. Yeah. Dude, they're jacked. Of course they do accessories. They're not stupid.
So all powerlifting programs will have the three main movements, obviously, and they'll have the supplementary movements. So accessory work. What's the role of accessory work?
So there is this big thing, and it's a real niggle for me actually. There's this big thing these days about
Jackson's niggle,
mate. Things that grind Jackson's gears. Episode 764. People, I see it heaps these days. People are actually coming into the gym, or it's their first thing. They've started weight training and they're training for powerlifting only. That's it. They can't, and then they get on these programs: squat, bench, deadlift only. That's it. No, it's like very little variation. It's like a squat and a pause squat and like a that's it. Or a tempo squat. Like that's it. And bench, it's bench, close grip, spotto press, whatever. Like it's like really, really close variations. And this is all they've ever done. And then they get really good at them, obviously, because it's a skill. So they get really, really good at squatting, bench, and deadlifting. But then they stop progressing because there's so many gaps that are made by squats, bench, and deadlift in your physique. When do you train your biceps? When do you train your rear delts? When do you train your lats? What do you,
what's the role of a bicep in powerlifting? Other than looking good when you're on the podium.
That's it, bro. That's all you need.
That's it. Yep.
No, bar stabilization on bench press.
Yep.
Not ripping open when you deadlift.
Rip on your deadlift.
grip on the deadlift, and then also if you do some high rep bicep curls, tendons respond best to higher reps because there's very little blood flow. So
powerlifting training doesn't necessarily
if you're
it's not necessarily high reps, is it? No.
And so if you don't do any bicep curls and you mix grip your deadlifts, guess what? And you stuff up your position a little tiny bit, there's the tendons this thick, bang, see ya, done. And you're going to give up powerlifting because you're like, oh, why would I go back to that? All I did was squat, bench, and deadlift.
There's definitely a crossover benefit. Like you get a halo benefit from doing bicep curls or seated rows or lat pull downs, when it comes to your deadlift, because you're working with the muscles that generally support the joints around that movement as well while you're doing it. So to be able to max out, you want conditioned everywhere. It's like being able to say, well, I'm going to be able to squat heavy and keep getting progression, but I'm not going to do any core work. But in actual fact, the core plays a huge part in your squat. So
everything. So that's a real thing these days. I don't know what it is, because powerlifting's becoming more of a thing, I think. But so people are just coming in and all they do is squat, bench, and deadlift, and it's cool. You're gonna get okay at them, but you're forever gonna be a mid-range lifter.
Yeah.
That you look at any of the best powerlifters these days. You look back, what were they doing 5 years ago, 10 years ago? I mean, Ray Williams basically. It's again like what we were saying about you don't get a new lifter to do a squat as their main movement because their force output won't be high enough because they're too wobbly. You look at Ray Williams or someone like that, he squats heavy, and he probably does a couple of leg exercises afterwards, but that's it. Because his output on the squat is so high, but he can, so he doesn't need to do the other shit. But I bet you 5 years ago, he was doing some horrendous leg workouts. I remember seeing on bodybuilding.com, he did 700 pounds for 20 on a squat, which is 317.5 kilos for 20 reps, and then did drop sets and stuff on leg press afterwards. That's just how he built his legs. And then now he just does heavy squats all the time, which is cool because it works now. It wouldn't have worked 10 years ago.
So what you've touched on there is, as we've mentioned this before as well, the more advanced lifters will obviously reduce the amount of variation in the exercise selection and just focus on, like an Andre Milic would just do squats, for example. Whereas you pick someone who's brand new, would you recommend, either Geordie or Jackson, you would recommend a nice selection of exercises to build up all those key muscles and legs, back, and so forth?
Yep. Do everything.
And obviously, the weight plays a part. The level of the how heavy you're lifting plays a part as well, I'm assuming, in exercise selection.
Yeah.
In terms of if you're going to go in and do 317 for 20, you probably haven't got much left in you to do much more, have you?
Well, that's what I mean. He did his whole workout after that.
Oh wow,
that's fucked. But that's like the best of the best. I mean, he can recover from that. That's another reason why it also seems to quite often be people that come in and just do squat, bench, and deadlift. There's very, very few people. So you need, like we were saying before about bodybuilding, it's either you need to either go really close to failure or get enough volume in to grow muscle. Yes, we can agree on that. Very few people are going to be able to handle that much volume on those big three lifts to grow muscle. If that makes sense. So if you 1 week say you do 3 10s on your squat, cool, perfect, good, all good, that's your baseline. The next week you do 4 10s. The next week you do 5. Where are you going to stop? 6 10s, 7 10s, 8 10s? You're going to blow your knee out, or your back or something, because there's so much loading. And also then you're just going to feel like you're hit by a bus because your nervous system's going to be shot. You need to be able to do, say, your 3 sets on squat or 4 sets on squat, and then take the load off, but still get the muscles contraction, if that makes sense, and still stress the muscle to then grow muscle. So do a leg press, a hack squat, etc.
So take us through that in as an example of a workout. What would that look like?
Okay. So I'll take you through what I did for squats the other day. So for me, this is a peaking block for me. So I did a heavy single. Again, the single was in the pocket. Did a single, did 3 down sets, and then that's on competition squat, so reps, belt, etc. Then I did 3 sets. I did a warm-up set, and then 3 working sets, so 4 sets on a safety bar squat with my heels raised and sleeves and no belt. 3 sets of, but again, so I did a single on squat, down sets of like 5, and then on the safety bar with my heels up, I was doing sets of 15, and then went to lunges, and then which I was doing 24, so 12 reps a leg. Then I went to leg extension, which was sets of 20 working up, and then I did a 100 rep drop set. And then I just did, I don't know if you guys have ever done these, this will give Geordie PTSD. Then I did sissy squats on the hack squat machine. With my butt basically going down to my heels up on my toes. It's real light, but like
you don't need it to be heavy for a sissy squat though. It's not what it's for.
So it's and so that's just straight, and it was like they were sets of 10 to 15 depending where I failed. I think on my last set of that I failed at like 9 because I was fucked. But so
how long was that workout?
Couple hours.
Couple hours, eh?
Couple hours. I mean, the first hour is just squatting because I mean we've talked about this before. Is that I treat it almost as 2 workouts.
Yeah.
You know,
how much of that first workout is just you bullshitting and talking?
95%.
5% bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah. The other 5% is bullshit. Yeah. No, honestly. And then you put the pedal to the middle, you know, later on. But it's so that's me doing my main movement, which was a competition squat, which is just below parallel, so it's not a full squat like a sissy squat. So I'm leaving out a lot of muscle there. I put knee wraps on, so that again reduces the stress on my quadriceps. You know, so that all that sort of stuff. And then I went onto the accessories and stressed the muscles that didn't get stressed on my main lift as much as I wanted them to. So quads, bit of glutes.
So your selection there of those movements post your competition squat is based on your ability to manage that amount of volume when it comes to those accessory works.
100%. Well, yeah. I mean, I've trained.
You made the call. Like, it wasn't necessarily written down that you were going to be doing all these things. You just instinctively knew.
Oh no, I had that planned.
You had a plan, eh?
Yeah, always have a plan, bro. I'm a nerd. I have a plan for everything.
I thought you just went, I thought it was just randomized. You just looked around the gym and thought, okay, let's fucking go over there and let's
No, so I'll do those same accessories next week.
Oh, you will? Okay.
Yeah. Just slightly heavier, or this. I mean, the sissy squats is just like to fuck you up at the end, just to get as much out of my quads as I can. But like the safety bar, the comp squats will all be heavier. The safety bar squat will be heavier. The lunges will be heavier. Actually, the leg extension, everything's just going to be heavier next week. Yeah, because it's already really high reps.
Okay.
But if it was less reps, I would maybe aim for more reps at the same weight.
So you're almost following a philosophy and programming that says quite well structured and very well thought out in terms of the main lift, and then your accessory work. The goal there is to
fill the gaps.
But the level of effort you would put in, you have a goal of basically not being able to do anymore. I mean, do you leave anything on the floor? Is there anything left in the gym, or are you absolutely smashed?
Actually, this is a good discussion actually, because this is where you get into the different systems of your body. So muscle wise, no, I'm spent, and cardio wise, I'm spent.
See, that's what I would call failure. That's what I was referring to before, where you've got nothing left in the muscle. I understand failure in terms of the resistance on the bar, certainly, and the load on the bar. But you, like, if you trained every single set that you did in that way, you'd be completely,
100%. The only sets to failure in that workout is the drop set that I would class as, like we were saying before, pass failure would be the drop set on the leg extension, and probably the last 2 sets of sissy squats. So so the sissy was to 100, wasn't it? The goal of getting to 100 reps. No, it was 100 rep drop set on the leg extension was the last set.
Yep.
So that I would class as pass failure because obviously I started.
So how many sets did the leg extension take to get to 100?
I have it written down. Probably I think
more than one. Four
drops. So I did like X amount of reps at this weight, and then
was that programmed or was that just you going?
Yeah, I'll program a 100 rep drop set. Yeah.
Oh, you even program it? Okay, you won't just go like you won't go balls to the wall for that first set and then just try and.
No, because my working sets up to that. Oh no, I see on that drop set.
You know what I mean? So you try and get as many as you can for that first set.
Yes,
and then try and get as many as you can for the second set, and then obviously calculate what you need for the remaining 2 sets. Eh?
Yes.
Okay, so you are effectively going to failure.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep those within a couple of reps though. I'll still have a couple of reps in the tank.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. So I would count that as a failure set, as we were saying, a failure set, and probably 2 sets of the sissy squats.
Okay.
Out of about 20 sets, there's 3
there. In terms of systems, you said the muscles gone, the cardiovascular system's gone. What's left? I think mentally, you're probably thinking I can do more.
Well, so this is the thing. So effectively, this actually goes to like how you sort of almost pick a program. So effectively for programming, I would say there is 4 systems in your body that you can choose to progress from a powerlifting standpoint. There's skill acquisition, which is squat, bench, deadlift, movement pattern stuff. So like skill acquisition or like throwing a tennis ball. You know what I mean? Or catching a ball. Like it's stuff that's that you can train really often. So they have this gets a bit technical, but they have things called SRA curves, which is a stress recovery adaptation curve. So basically when you train, your body I'll do it for the video, but also explain it. So when you train, you effectively actually stress your body, and then your body thinks, oh shit, when you're done, and if you give it enough nutrients and what do you call it, resources, it recovers. And then it gets a slight adaptation above where your baseline was. So if I'm here and I stress my body and then I actually recover and I get a slight adaptation, you know what I mean? That's effectively training. You stress your body, it recovers, and you get a slight adaptation on top. And that built up over time becomes progress.
Yep.
So in effect, so these curves as such, when you graph it out, this is me getting nerdy, is that some of them are different lengths than others. So the really quick one is skill acquisition. So that's like, catching a ball. Like I can train that multiple times a day and get really good at it really quickly because of the frequent, it gets stressed a little bit and recovers and it does this real quickly. It goes up real quick because you can stress it so often. So skill acquisition, then there's like cardio, which is you can stress it and it recovers, but you can probably like, you'll see runners and they'll go for like a big run like every day, every second or third day, and they can recover from it and they adapt to it and then they get better the next time. So skill acquisition, cardio, and like fitness work capacity as such, that's like one thing. Hypertrophy, so your muscular system as such is the next one that recovers sort of like the quickest.
Yep.
And the last one is your nervous system adaptation, which takes the longest. Like that's like a heavy deadlift or a heavy squat, and you just feel like you've been hit by a bus and you just want to sleep, but you can't sleep, and your nervous system's just wrecked. Like for me, say I'll do my last heavy deadlift like 3 weeks out from a comp. You know what I mean? That's how long that curve is. Because of what I'm doing. But like, you know what I mean? Like even a normal person, their deadlift, that a heavy deadlift is going to be more stressing to them than trying to catch a tennis ball.
Yeah.
Because of the nervous system.
This is off topic. Sorry guys, but Jackson's opened a can. Not cans, interesting. Of the 4 systems, what's the how long does it take to detrain all 4 systems?
Well, again, that's the thing. So the longer the curve, the longer you can go without stressing it. Oh,
the longevity. The longest curve would be the nervous
system.
So
people take like a couple of weeks off training, like, fuck, I've gotten weak abs, I need to test myself out, and they lift the same thing. They're like, oh, I feel great, I lifted the same after 3 weeks off training. It's like, yeah, no shit, because you're fucking fresh as. You know, like, and you've probably just recovered from the shit you're doing back here. So it's one of those, you know, but then like the skill, your technique will probably be pretty sloppy because you haven't done it for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So the skill acquisition is detrained quicker. Same with the cardio.
Yeah.
But the thing with those is that you can get them back quicker.
So I'm assuming there is the perfect frequency that we do these activities. You know, what is the perfect
That's what we're all
frequency?
searching for. That's what we're all searching for.
Yeah, the right one where we get the skill adaptation, and then
Yeah.
boom, we hit it again. But we're getting all 4 systems lined up perfectly.
So
Yeah.
I mean, so say an example of that would be someone where you have someone squat 3 times a week. So you're stressing that skill adaptation curve heaps. You're getting them to squat more often, but all 3 of those squat workouts aren't going to be heavy because the nervous system curve isn't recovered. So you're going to keep stressing the skill acquisition, but you're not going to stress the nervous system the whole time. But then,
So I touch on too. Just we talked a little bit about duration of workout, which I think is really critical when you're first starting out. For someone who's training at the top end and quite in what would probably be quite a sophisticated program, Jackson, I think 2 hours is definitely, you know, where you should be potentially. I always tried to keep the actual functional, like the actual squat, bench, or deadlift in a 40-minute window, so I could do a 20-minute blast session on accessories afterwards and have the resistance side of my workout completely smashed in 60 minutes. That's because I was going to spend I'd maybe warm up 10 minutes before that on a bike or something like that, and then I'd do 10 or 15 minutes of stretch and mobility afterwards. So still an hour and a half workout, but I try and condense what I'm doing from a workload standpoint into an hour, because and maybe it's the little bit of the bodybuilding that's been in me that I know that once you go past and beyond a point, your body's sort of natural, you know, hormones basically start to blunt at the end of that workout. And so I want to train optimally, and that gave me the frequency, the ability to be able to recover again for the next day. Because at the time, you know, when I was at my peak, I was still competing in bodybuilding. So I would, you know, like I would jump from what might be an off-season style diet while I was powerlifting, because I could train heavier at lower rep ranges, and then I'd switch back in and just condition again over an 8 to 12 week period for a bodybuilding comp. And which isn't normal. It's not normal for people to be able to do that, but certainly the duration of my workouts were very similar like that, and I found that's kind of what worked for me. I think for a novice wanting to get into powerlifting, if you were looking at what the top guys are doing and thinking, wow, I've got to do an 2-hour leg session and squat session and then a 2-hour bench session, you've kind of got to, take it back to the beginning of when these guys first started. And they were probably doing shorter workouts, and they were probably a bit younger, so they could make them a bit punchier but yeah, I would try and keep, for a beginner, someone who's just starting out and really building their programming, is try and stick to that 1 hour block initially. And then once you start to get in a position where you feel that, you can sustain the weight longer and you've peaked and you're in really prime condition. Because at the end of 3 years of competing, there was a vast difference to how my body responded to powerlifting than where I was. I could handle a lot more stress, and, I just didn't need as much rest. I could just barrel through most of my workouts pretty comfortably. So it's good.
It's interesting that you mentioned that's another thing for people to take into consideration when doing a program about being younger, and you can punch through it better. So where do you fit? What population are you in? So someone who is lighter and smaller. So pretty much, those curves are disruption you've caused to your body, the stress. Yeah. So if you're smaller or lighter, you can cause less disruption to your body, less stress on your body than someone who's bigger and heavier, even if they're weaker than you, which people quite often don't think about.
And see how complicated it gets as soon as you start thinking in terms of individuals starting these programs.
100%.
So you know, like we kind of touched on it, and this podcast is really about what do you do and what do you know when you first start and where do you find that information. But I would always recommend, if you're unsure, get some recommendation, find a trainer or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, because they've roadmapped a lot of people probably similar to your situation. And you could, if you do it the trial and error, it's like anything. It's like trying to run a business. If you do it the trial and error way, you're just going to make all the mistakes that everyone else has made ahead of you.
Yeah.
So and powerlifting's no different. You just save yourself a lot of time, and for the sake of what could be like, I don't know, a $90 session with a trainer, you'll learn probably quite a bit in that 1 hour session about what you should be doing at the start of the program too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When the intention with the podcast to start with this particular episode anyway was to there is obviously that overlapping recommendation that a coach or a trainer will fast track you as well. But I think there's so much power in people having an understanding of what they're doing and why they're doing it beforehand, so they have a real partnership with their coach as well.
I always tell people to ask why. If someone asks me, oh, why am I doing this, or why is that in my program, and I can't justify it, we take it out.
No, good man.
But I can always justify it because I've written the program, because I have that mindset. If someone says to me, oh, my coach has put this in there, like, how do I do this exercise? And I look at them and I'm, why has he got you doing that? And they're like, oh, I don't know, I just do it because he said. I'm like, I'll ask him next time. And they ask and they're like, oh, just got it's hard. I'm like, get rid of him. Get rid of that coach. Fuck it. That's fucking bullshit. You shouldn't just put something in there because it's hard. If I wanted to do hard, I'd go and do CrossFit.
Here's a question then, because we've talked quite a bit in a powerlifting podcast about leg extension.
Go on.
What is the real benefit of leg extension? Then is it like a core compound exercise that people should go out and do? I feel like
100%.
So the next extension is how good is your 3 and 5 rep max on cable crossover for bench press?
The thing is that you're creating muscle mass.
So that's the purpose of the 100%. Accessory.
Yeah, but you should, but don't fucking max it. Yeah, that's the thing. This is the thing. Don't know why you're doing an exercise. Why is leg extension in there? Oh, I'll do a 3 rep max, see how strong my quads have gotten. Bang, bang, see you later. You can't fucking walk.
Yeah, so I think to understand what exactly the purpose of the accessory is before you put it on, because my training predominantly had leg extension in it, and that could be part of the reason why the older I got, I put myself in a position potentially where I had these tears in my tendons, maybe, which might have contributed to my injury. But there was no strength purpose for the leg extension to be there. It was about muscle activation and just getting that last load out to make sure that I'd pushed as much blood flow through my legs as I possibly could.
And I think that's spot on why this particular episode, and why there are other episodes out there of different podcasts, guys, listen in. But if you've got that, as long as you know that potentially exercises can lead to certain things, but also if they're abused, they can lead to catastrophic injuries. And I know that the underlying message here is question your coach. But if you have an understanding beforehand, you at least know that you need to question your coach, or potentially look for a new coach, or potentially make better choices in terms of, or versus maxing out on the leg extension, which can be a lot of fun to do. By the way,
one of the best accessory exercises I ever did for my bench press, I think, was just a straight out flat dumbbell fly.
100%.
I think I got the most. I certainly felt like my chest got thicker for bodybuilding doing that exercise, and because you're supporting your shoulder through the movement, as long as you do the control and get a nice sort of arch in your back when you're coming back to stretch it, I felt like that was one of the exercises that, as a bodybuilder, it's a mainstay in a bodybuilding program because it's great for getting thickness in your chest. But I felt it really helped me for my bench press.
Okay.
And you could see, like, I mean, I could remember doing 40-45 kilo flies at one point, and most people wouldn't do them that heavy, but I could push a full set out at 8 to 10, and that was comfortable. And I could do that in between. If I could do that exercise in between what I was doing on my heavy weeks for bench, then I kind of felt like I was keeping the intensity in the right place as well. So
cool. So we've talked about intensity. We've talked about commonalities and the various programs. I think perhaps the last topic, and I could be wrong, might be frequency. Now, one of the differences I see in many programs is frequency. Squatting once a week, squatting every 10 days, to the extreme, squatting every day. How do you make it?
Lilybridge used to squat every 2 weeks.
And then you get every 2 weeks. Yeah.
That's the longest I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get Bulgarians who are training every day. Yeah. And it seems to work for them too. Or does it?
And you can split that routine too. So the Bulgarian principle isn't just every day; it's broken into 3 workouts as well. If you go down to that microcycle, So you can do one exercise on each body part in the morning, and then trying to get at midday, and then trying to get in the afternoon, and do that 7 days a week. And that's what that program is.
So in terms of that, I suppose, I mean, with training, really, like this is where people who say that powerlifting's hard are chatting absolute shit. It's the simplest sport in the world, and we actually get to do the sport as our training. You know what I mean? Like, and you know exactly what you're going to have to do. You can literally
like golf could be there too, mate. I think there's some.
No, because you have different wind, you have different, stuff changes. In powerlifting, nothing changes. You can literally train on a competition setup every day if you wanted to, if you're in the right gym. In golf, you have no control over the wind. You've got no control over, that, like, I'm sure there'd be something else that I just can't think of because I'm not a golfer, but, or the moisture of the ground, fuck, I don't know, whatever it is. But with powerlifting, you can literally train the exact thing that you're going to be competing in.
No, very good point.
So when people say it's
my golf analogy,
it's hard. It's like, it's hard. You can train hard, of course, but it's not hard to train for.
Yeah.
So in
terms of exercise frequency, how do you make that call?
So there's 3 things that we have control of in powerlifting training, really. The frequency, like you say, the volume that you do, and the intensity. And all 3 of they're like in a triangle, and it's almost like you can pick 2. You can pick 2 and you can't do all 3. You can't go 5 sets of 20 to failure every day.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, you just can't. You'd run yourself into the ground in like 2 days.
That was the concept of Cube, really, though, wasn't it? It was to show that you could have an easier, moderate, and then a heavy week, and then just alternate the routines around the week, and then so it would be totally balanced over that cycle. So
100%. So usually, any time that your frequency is high, then typically your volume will be high as well, just because you're doing it more often. You know what I mean? So like you say, if you're squatting every day, well, over the week, you're going to do a lot of sets of squats, more than you would in one session if you did it once a week. But then you're going to have to keep the intensity down because you can't train heavy every day. So, but if you do one squat
not
session
productive at that point.
Not productively, no, fuck no. So, but if you do one squat session a week, so the frequency is really fucking low, you can go really heavy and probably fit in a few sets. You know what I mean? So you can, you almost, or you can do, the funny thing with that is, with a lot of those Bulgarians, is that they do the intensity and the frequency and drop off the volume somehow. So they work up and they do one heavy squat
exercise
a day. Yeah, and then they'll do a heavy front squat. They'll do a heavy squat Monday, heavy front squat Tuesday, heavy squat Wednesday, heavy snatch squat Friday, like whatever it is. So
but they blast through different ends of the day, though, don't they? So you might heavy squat on a Monday morning, but you won't do your next squat session until halfway through the day, Tuesday, or even in the evening.
Yeah. So they blast the intensity and the frequency and keep the volume low. So it's always a combination of those 3. So the frequency really depends on the other 2, but then the other 2, so it's a never-ending circle.
Here's a clincher for you, Wave. Short of clever programming and a coach or trainer in your corner, how could you work that out yourself?
Read a lot of books.
Okay, here you go. All right.
Short of not. How do you know? How would I know, like my own body and so forth? What would I need? What would I be experiencing to know that I've gone too far?
ambulance.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I was gonna tone it down with like overuse injuries, but yeah,
Yeah, when the
Yeah.
ambulance picks you up and takes you to hospital, that's a pretty fucking good indicator.
yeah, that's a good indicator that you've gone that wee bit too far. So, okay, so to be fair, so here you go, free program. So most people would, if you go in and you squat once a week, you bench twice a week, and you deadlift once a week, you'll progress.
Boom.
Yeah.
That's it.
Jackson,
Do the
every-
accessories with those. Do the
Every
accessories with
workout's a
those.
step up the ladder. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think if you get, and what Jackson said right at the beginning about, keeping things simple, the basic programs are often the best ones. And if you start off at just, exactly what you've just explained, that's a good place to start. And then, like, I train more instinctively now. Like, I obviously don't train for competition anymore, but I still keep the same routine because I've got that structure in my head. It keeps me regulated. So, and I kind of, with my clients specifically and around their training, is they'll give me an indication, just through the relationship that we've got, because it's a very transparent relationship when you coach someone for competition. They'll let me know how they're feeling. Maybe I feel like I should be able to recover enough to do an extra leg session, or maybe let's separate the squat session so it's just an entire squat session, and then I'll do an extra leg accessory, 2 or 3 days later once that muscle's, been able to recover somewhat. So yeah, but yeah, I like the idea of basics.
Basic.
And yeah, simple
Awesome.
is.
It's what you can stick to. A good program you can stick to will be. It's the same as a diet. A good program a half decent program you can stick to will beat the perfect program that you do for fucking 2 weeks and then swap.
100%.
Actually also, side note, and then people are going to be like, oh, well, what numbers do I do on those days? So hang on. Actually, so we've talked about this before, Greg, when I was showing you the sort of some of the programming design that I did when I did yours. So obviously most of the programming I do now is like mostly from experience. I'm like, okay, well, this population, they call them archetypes, but like that's kind of like a shitty sciencey word, so I just say population. But like, so this version of people can handle this much volume usually, et cetera, and this, so like a small female is at one end of the spectrum, and then a male is at this end of the spectrum. Females can handle more than guys can because we're pussies. And it's not just because we're pussies, their body actually handles it better.
I've heard this here. They're built differently, aren't they?
Yeah, just their body recovers so much better. So on their SRA curve, they can get the same amount of stress. If we got the same amount of stress, but they'll recover like this and we recover like this. So we recover further out. And
especially lower body in comparison, because there's a lot
100%.
They're proportionally stronger in their lower bodies than men are.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like a whole system. They just seem to recover because they don't cause the same stress and they recover quicker, which is just crazy. And so they've got a twin-edged sword, really.
I'm probably going to get hated, but I think it's probably got something to do with the ancestral, obviously back in the day, obviously reproductive, the requirement to reproduce obviously takes a huge tax on the body, and so the body is built to obviously recover quickly to reproduce again. That's just a rough guess.
No, I would totally agree. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I would I would agree though that makes sense. This sort of stuff goes back to that. But so numbers wise, you sort of have to find.
I'm going to get a few hated comments now, but sorry.
No, we're good. That's a positive, bro. I feel like that's a compliment. That's not a. I don't know. If someone hates on that, fuck, they shouldn't be listening.
Okay.
Well, so
they're going to hate on you at the same time, so I'm glad
that's fine. Yeah, I'll take it. I'm used to that. Yeah, no, I'll back you up, bro. I got your back.
Geordie's staying quiet.
So people, you sort of have to figure out where you are on that curve. We can't like spoon feed that to you. Like if you recover fast, you'll know. If you recover slowly, you'll fucking know as well. So you need to figure out where you are on that. No one can spoon feed you that. But if you do,
it can change a lot in 2 weeks as well. So when you first start a program, you'll feel like my clients know. They know they're going to walk funny for 2 or 3 days, at least after the workout. And especially a new client, I sit down with someone and say, look, this is what you want to achieve. This is what we're doing over the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks. Now your first 2 weeks are going to be hell, and I'm not going to apologize for it. You're actually going to walk funny for at least 3 or 4 days after a leg session with me. That's normal. You'll do that for 2 weeks, and then your body will adjust, and then we can start looking productively at how we get sort of progression from there. So,
so I mean, that's because it's a new stress, because they used to train in like X, and now you're getting to train like Y, and then they need to learn how to recover from it. It's which is, most people aren't used to having that dip. They train a wee bit, they don't get this big dip, but then they actually don't know, like you say, they get that recovery back in 2 weeks and they feel great and they're fantastic. But sorry, so numbers wise, Greg, we've talked about this before. If you want just a basic numbers thing, you can't go past a good coach, but there is a thing called Prilepin's chart, which was developed by an Eastern European or a Russian. I think he was Russian. They're always good at this stuff, and he developed it for weightlifting, but it happens to transfer over to powerlifting as well. So it looks. You can probably put it on the video. Chuck it on the video.
Prilepin's or Prilepin's chart. That's actually. Let's just finish the podcast on that note. What are some great resources? Obviously, we want to tell everybody get a coach. There is obviously a cost involved, but for those who are just starting out, down the line, sure, get a coach. But what are some great tips, resources that both of you would recommend, like your top 5 tips for starting out in powerlifting? Geordie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. I'm just trying to find the app on my phone because here we are.
So would that be number 1? There are apps, yeah.
Yeah. It looks like this when you're on it. So it's the Wendler 531 app, and there's a lot of them you'll find in the App Store. So what I'll do is I might flick a picture of what it actually looks like when you go through an actual link itself. But I use that.
We'll chuck it in the description. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Because that's something where you can put your 1 rep max, and it actually preloads what your workout looks like on the bar. And it's nice because it'll just sit on your phone. It'll measure each of the three sort of working weeks, and then your deload weeks. It'll tell you where you should be on that. And that's something it's nice and handy when you're in the gym. Do you know what I mean? So not that you should have your cell phone on you, because you shouldn't. But after programming with that,
just on that, how do people know I've had a workout if I haven't got my phone on me?
Exactly. Yeah.
You take the post, the sweaty selfie in the car. Just nailed it. Just went to war.
Yeah.
Just went to war with the weights in an air-conditioned room. Fuck off.
That's Jackson's tip. Yep. So
that app
there are apps. Number 1, there are apps. Any other tips, Geordie, in terms of resources, reading?
I find like T Nation. There's some good some good sort of people online you can follow too, like the likes of. You don't need to look on Instagram, but Ed Cohen obviously is someone that you probably want to have a look in on some of his sort of more educational YouTube sort of presentations and so on. So like I learned from using applications mostly from books. So I would download material, and I would sort of go through some of the websites like T Nation and stuff like that when it came to bodybuilding. And then, but I probably learnt the most training alongside in a gym that was specifically about powerlifting. And I would watch everyone else around me, and I'd pick up things in the way that they were being coached by their powerlifting coach. I'd already, by the time I realized I was a good powerlifter, I was already 20 years into my training. So I already had a background in personal training, so I could, analyze what movement was or what the frequency was and make that something functional in my own training. But and then I think the best resource for me personally was competition. I come out of that, and the amount of networking and stuff you do with the guys at the top end of the sport, and just an opportunity to see how they prep backstage, and then just the commonality. Everyone in powerlifting, it's a different vibe to bodybuilding. When you're at a powerlifting comp, people will sit backstage and they'll talk, and they're a lot, like you're cheering the guy on ahead of you, potentially could pip you out of that medal, but and you could have a conversation at the end of that phase of the competition, and you'll just pick a few points up that they were doing in their training. It's awesome.
I found the backstage of bodybuilding to be pretty good. There was this one time somebody left some chocolate lying around. I can't remember who it was. Oh, was it you? I can't remember. Yeah, there was some chocolate lying around.
I literally came off stage and he was tucked in the corner eating my Easter egg.
Boy, if that's like, you know how like backstage people are like, I mean, I'm horrendous for it. I'll be like, oi, so did you like sort that grip issue out on your deadlifts or whatever? Just before they deadlift? That's like the pinnacle of that. Like, hey, yeah, nice work, bro. I've already eaten your fucking chocolate. that's like the king of banter. That's the king like move. Yep. That's hilarious.
And the old Arnold move, hide the t-shirt.
Hide the t-shirt. That's, oh, fuck, I love that movie. I'm going to watch that after this. Has anyone seen my t-shirt? And he's hitting it.
Exactly.
That's so good. See, I love that shit, man. That's the best.
That's funny, yeah. That's fun. All right, Geordie, that's okay. So get an app. There's plenty of apps out there, guys. 531 Wendlers, Juggernaut. Juggernaut have an AI powered app as well, I believe. I was doing some research on it as well. There's tons of apps that can help you. Do some research on websites like T Nation. I thought Geordie said Teen Nation for a sec, but no, that's a different website. So, T Nation. Get amongst it with comps. Get amongst it with powerlifting gyms as well if they're near you. Jackson, your top 3, top 5. How many fucking tips you got? Tips for new starters pre investing in a coach.
I mean, yes. I mean that if you want to do your own program, sorry, too much Pepsi Max. Just shameless plug again.
Thank
so we
you,
can get
Pepsi
the sponsorship.
Max.
Thank you, Pepsi Max.
Yeah. So when did reply?
So that chart, like, you know, there's an 8-week program there. Do 2 weeks and it's in 4 layers. Do 2 weeks in the first one, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, and 2 weeks, and then test your max again. You know, that's an easy program. So, I mean, if you want to do your own program and do that, there's books. I mean, I read the whole of that Arnold's Modern Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding in about 3 days. I just jammed through it. It's you know, you can't just read. This is a nerd sport. Learn to read. Learn to take in information, but good information. Don't take the shit on Instagram. Just got an infographic doesn't mean it's true.
Just on that, people that you would follow in terms of knowledge.
So I was just going to say,
YouTube and Instagram.
I've read all of Chad Wesley Smith stuff. He's like a programming god somehow. He just is. It just happens. So he's written ebooks, The Thoughtful Pursuit of Strength, and what else have I got? I think he actually did some hard copies of those as well, which is dope. The Scientific Principles of Strength Training.
Great series on YouTube as well. I think he covers off all 7 principles on YouTube. About 30 minutes long, so just digestible enough for YouTube.
So so if you're more of a visual learner, that's pretty good. The Cube Method by Brandon Lilly.
That's great.
Again, old but good stuff. There's if people want to be good at sort of bits and pieces, Alex Viada has a book called The Hybrid Athlete. He's the only guy who ran a marathon and deadlifted 700 pounds in the same week.
I've heard of this guy. Madness.
He's great. He's jacked as fuck as well. You looked at him, you wouldn't think he runs a marathon. Funnily enough, I wrote a ebook called The Beast Blueprint. So if anyone wants that, hit me up.
Shameless plug.
I'll throw it in there. Anyone wants that, hit me up.
I'll chuck it in the notes, mate. Pay the bills.
But otherwise, like you say, just get in, talk to people. You know, people are the bigger, but talk to the guy that's not fucking injured every week. Talk to the guy that just sits there, plugs away, trains hard. Yeah, talk to the guy that trains hard, but not the guy that's, I'm recovering from a back injury, like, I think you should go heavier. Your sets look too easy. You know, like, hang on, mate. You're the one that's just coming back from a fucking injury. You know, so listen to the right people. Think critically about things. Ask why. You know, why is that guy injured all the time? Why is he lifting the same weights as he was last week? Or not last week, but last year. You know, why does he look the same?
Yeah.
Find the person that's progressed and be like, oh, actually, shit, what are they doing? You know, and like you say, go and compete. Otherwise, you're not a powerlifter. Go and do the comps. That's where the money is, because the experienced lifters will see you straight away and be like, that guy or girl, they're serious. They're keen, you know. And if you think you're not strong enough to compete, then the people that are competing aren't going to get any weaker. So
No.
they're not going to
Powerlifting
wait.
comps are a great source of knowledge. I think I gave away a ton of knowledge yesterday at a meet. Just little tips and tricks from people walking off the platform, little mistakes you make. So I think you'll find that in most powerlifting meets that the people there are quite willing to help out, share their experience, share their knowledge. So some great tips there from Jackson. We'll leave it there, boys. It's been a great episode. I hope people get some value out of this. We haven't really gone back and just covered some absolute basics. I know some more advanced lifters may want more, but hit us up. I will not be able to answer those questions, but we'll make sure that we've got people on the podcast that can. Thank you, Geordie, for coming on. Appreciate it, mate.
Cool, yeah, appreciate it. It's all good.
It's all fun and games.
Geordie.
And it's been great having Jackson back on again. Trying to
sell
his ebook. Yeah, he hasn't missed one episode yet. Never
always, mate. Always here.
Yeah, legends of the podcast. Thanks, guys. Have a good night. And we'll see you all later for the next episode. See you guys.
Thanks, mate. See you later.
Yeah.